Wait, and you can hear me okay? Oh my God,
Yep.
look at all these likes. So
Good
many
stuff.
likes and so many people. Thank you so much. Um, all right. Hey, everybody. I am A Day. I'm the Black Carnivore. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to be here tonight and talk to you about this really exciting or interesting topic. We talk a lot about high fat, low carb. That's really the approach that we follow. And wanted to talk about carnivore from a low fat perspective and what that means. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And but before you run off and get your whey protein and egg whites and chicken breast, hold on. Let's talk about it before you take any action, okay? So
Right.
I see there's a bunch of people here. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and click the little bell so you can get notification every time we go live. And also, we've got lots of exciting stuff going on in the Black Carnivore community. So don't forget, we have a challenge coming up, the Thanksgiving to Christmas challenge. This is just to keep us on track and help us to stay, carnivore and stay solid on our program. And also, I put a bunch of new t-shirt designs in the Redbubble store. You definitely want to head over there because they are really cute. And now I've seen the products that they've ordered, and they are so cool. So definitely head over there. All right, so let's get started. Before we even start anything, Arian, what is on your t-shirt?
Oh, this is I think it's the cover of a let me make sure it's in view. Yeah. So this is
Ah,
the cover of a Biggie album and it says Sky's the Limit. I'm pretty sure this is
gotcha.
I remember this from somewhere. Was this Ready to Die that had the I think it was. I think it was Ready to Die. Hip hop heads, please don't
Okay,
kill me. But yeah.
okay.
And it says
All
Sky's the
right.
Limit.
All right. Hey, hey, Seabliss. Great to see you guys. Awesome.
Howdy, howdy.
Yeah. So, so let's get to talking about this idea. I have been thinking about, uh, so this is, essentially what we're talking about is a protein sparing modified fast. Have you heard about that before, Arian?
Just well, mostly from you, but then some other influencer talked about it. I didn't understand it at the time. I think my first time getting it was when you explained it a few lives ago because
Oh,
I
okay.
was lost. It's such a, I really hate the name of that fast.
Yeah.
It's unintuitive.
Yeah. Well, it's perfectly intuitive, but it's a mouthful. Protein
I don't,
sparing, modified fast. So you're fasting, but not completely, and you're sparing your protein,
but sparing
theoretically.
protein sounds to me like you're not eating protein, not that you are eating protein
Mm,
and that's what you're concentrating on. Like, why don't you
that's
just call
true.
it a, they could call it a low fat fast or not even a fast period. Like, it's called super low fat and it would make a lot more sense to me.
Hmm. Yeah. So I guess I could see that. So those of you who are here in the chat, go ahead and put in the chat. Have you heard of a protein sparing modified fast? Have you ever tried it? What do you think? So for me, I first heard about it like years ago, probably like I want to say like 2004, 2005. There was a guy, I think his name was Lyle McDonald, who was a like workout guy and also like a low carb guy. This was even before we used the word keto, and so he wrote this like short ebook called protein sparing modified fast. And he took what had been, I think before that the diet had mostly been used like this is what remember when Oprah lost all her weight, she did it
Mm-hmm.
using OptiFast. So those were all shakes. That was a protein sparing modified fast. So
Mm.
previously, like if you had money, you could go to a fancy clinic and they give you these shakes and you do it. Or if you were in the hospital or being treated and there was some, there was some reason why you needed to lose fat weight really fast, they would administer it in the hospital. And it was basically done with a shake, so not real food. Lyle McDonald, adjusted it to use real food instead of shakes, and to target it specifically for people who are working out. And so he would, help you figure out exactly, how much protein you needed to eat in order to support your existing lean body mass. And then you would eat exactly that and as little fat as you possibly could. And then he sort of gave you an outline about how long you could do it, depending on how much you weighed or how much fat you had. And this was sort of I think, a diet that was intended to help bodybuilders, basically prepare and get ready for their, I don't know, job or challenge or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
assume right before a competition, you want to lose as much fat as possible.
exactly, exactly. Um, so I remember him writing, very clearly throughout, throughout the book, like, don't do this. Like, it's better to lose your weight properly. This is not a good idea. Don't do this. If
This
you're
thing
going
I'm
to do it,
explaining, don't do.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So he was, really adamant about that. And, and it makes sense. Like, it was a very draconian thing. And the one thing I remember him saying most was that it, it can really mess with your hormones and with your brain function, because, fat serves an important function.
Mm.
So, he had, so he had said, if you're very heavy, you could do it up to 6 weeks without stopping. But if you're like preparing for a contest or something, you could do it up to like 4 or 5 days. And, and that would be the fastest way that you could reasonably lose fat and not lose any protein. But he
Mm.
also said, hey, you're going to feel horrible while you're doing this, and you're going to be in a terrible mood. So just expect that. Yeah. Yeah. So, so that was like the first time I heard about it. And so I tried it back then, and it was awful. I couldn't do it. Now, yeah.
Can we pause a second?
Hmm.
So you heard about it and you read this book, which at the time, did you acknowledge that he was saying, "Hey, don't do this. This isn't
Yeah.
a really
Yeah.
great way to go, and
Yeah.
also you will be miserable and could very possibly stay on it too long and knock your hormones out of whack."
Yeah.
And so I feel like all of that is like all those like yellow and red road signs,
Yeah.
and you put the blinders on and kept going.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm not
Why?
alone. Look, you see, 99 Corrado said he heard about it from Lyle McDonald, tried it, and it worked, but it was difficult to maintain. And after being on it for a couple of weeks, the refeeds were heaven. So I forgot. Yeah, he wanted you to do refeeds to try to rebalance your hormones. I mean, essentially get that fat back into you. So it wasn't. It really wasn't something you could maintain.
Hmm.
Yeah. So Siebelis agrees. Everyone pretty much says that who practices protein sparing modified fast. It's really, really hard. So, so the interesting thing, though, about it, I think, is how can it be used properly? Now, the other way that I heard about it was, does anybody remember the Dukan diet or Dukan?
It sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you what it was.
Yeah, there was this French guy, and he had this clinic, and like French women or women in Europe would just be able to go there and miraculously lose all of this weight. And
Hmm.
I had read that I think Kate Middleton, when she got married, leading up to the wedding, had used it to slim down and and get ready for the wedding. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So so I. So it's got a history, it's got life, but it's hard to do. So the Dukan version was I think, much milder. So he had you eating meat and vegetables one day, and then just meat the next day, and you were supposed to do that, alternate those days until you had lost your weight, and then once you had lost your weight, one day a week you had to eat just lean protein. So it's like you do it one day.
Wait, say it again. It was really fast and I missed it. You were eating what on which days?
So, as I remember, you alternate one day eating vegetables and meat, and the next day eating just meat,
Hmm.
low fat meat, low fat, and then one day a week. So you do that until you lose your weight, and then after you hit your weight, one day a week on Thursdays, I don't know why, you're supposed to eat only lean protein for the rest of your life.
So his was forever protein sparing modified fast.
Well, one day a week, not
Well,
every day.
well, yes, after you lose all the weight, but before
Hmm.
you lose all the weight, it was just you're doing this every other day.
Yeah, till you lose the weight. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. All right.
yeah. So I bring it up because so I did see that Maria Emmerich. I know somebody mentioned that in the chat. Maria Emmerich has they published a book about protein sparing modified fast,
Mm.
and so their approach is, I think, a lot less draconian. So it's to do 1 to 3 days a week, do a day where you're eating, low fat and protein, and no carbs. Um, and then, but you only do it a few days a week, not back to back, and and you do it like that. So I was like, okay, I could see how that would work.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
if you're just instead of even the 4 or 5 days in a row, to just do it
Hmm.
a day
Hmm.
or 2 days, and you're only going to be miserable for a short amount of time. You're probably minimizing any harmful effects that it could have to you, and you
Hmm.
just accept that you're not going to have the results as fast as the Dukan diet or
The
the
straight up
way that
TSM.
Lyle McDonald says to do it.
Yeah.
Because 6 weeks of eating like that is
Hmm.
really, really, that's a lot. It
Hmm.
it doesn't even like I like to say that that doesn't sound fun. It's worse than doesn't sound fun. It sounds miserable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I never made it 6 weeks. No, not at all.
So why did you choose to do it?
Because it was like, oh, lose fat, lose fat really fast, and you get to eat,
Hmm.
But yeah, but once I started doing it, it was like, oh, egg whites, chicken breast, yuck.
Was it
Yeah,
like held to 1 tablespoon of butter for like the whole chicken breast? Like you had to measure the tablespoon, and that's what you could grease the pan with. You couldn't do more. Or did they? Actually, you were probably baking the chicken, weren't you?
oh, or poaching. Yeah, no, no added butter. Are you kidding? So
Uh,
Seabliss brings up a good point. She says she thinks that low fat needs to be quantified. So I think Lyle McDonald was, his thing was you got to go as low fat as possible. So, if you give a number, people are going to go up to that number rather than just trying to go as low as possible.
mhm.
But in the Emmerichs are recommending 30 grams of fat a day or less. But they're talking about eating real foods, not shakes. So in that circumstance, every piece of meat that you're going to eat is going to come with some fat. So they don't have you eating yolks because there's too much fat in it. There's certain types of meat that are just going to be too fatty. So they're talking about eating filet mignon or I don't know what's the butt the what are
Oh,
some of those bottom rounds,
round.
or
Yeah,
yeah,
I think bottom
London
round.
broils.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. London bro is really really lean, especially
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it'll have like and round will have this too, like that like finished layer of fat on it, and you can just cut
Yeah.
that right off, and then basically
Yeah.
all you have is muscle meat.
Yeah. Yeah. So so I see C Bliss is making some recommendations of types of things. Obviously, fish, most kinds is going to be fine. Chicken breast.
Hmm.
Yeah, and 99 Corrado says, "Are we venturing into macro calorie tracking?" So yeah, that's a great point. So I never wanted to do that. I just wanted to like eat a type of food and leave it at that. And so that was why I chose like egg whites and chicken and fish because those things, like that's as low as you can go without doing something weird. So that was why I did
Right.
that. Um, and the book that they wrote has just like a whole bunch of recipes of different types of things that you can eat. So I think it's possible to do it without macro counting or calorie tracking. They do have a calculator where you can like figure out how many grams of protein that you need based off of your lean body mass. So you would probably, I mean, depending on your size and your height and everything, you might be, like a woman might be eating about 800 calories a day. But so you might figure out like about how much weight of meat you need to eat, and then, you kind of go from there.
Hmm.
So I don't think that you have to become super vigilant about it. And especially if you're doing this one day a week and you're doing one meal a day, it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
And I guess so. Is there any thought to so the way they're doing it? They're telling you how much protein you need, but are they telling you? Are they? Is there a protocol to actually like measure your food and to know like I've gotten my required level of protein? I am now stopping, or are they
Yeah,
just saying eat as much as you want, but you're eating really really lean meat, so you will automatically be under. You'll be way low on fat and either at your protein level or up slightly above.
you do have to pay some attention to how much you're eating. Like, you make a portion and you have that. But I don't know that you have to get as neurotic about it as some of us have gotten.
She says, thinking of
Yeah,
herself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So there is some measuring involved. There is some,
Hmm.
not just a restriction on fat, but a restriction on the amount of food, period, even in the relaxed way of doing it, which is the Emmerich's way.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But what I like about it is that you're only doing it for a day, and then you go back to eating regular. So even if you do it alternating days, you still have an opportunity to catch up on that fat. So you don't feel as awful as you would if you were trying to do it continuously.
Mm. Um,
And Ceebla says after you finish eating all that dry meat, you don't feel like eating much anyway. Yeah, yeah,
I can imagine.
yeah,
It's depression and deep regrets on a plate.
yeah, yeah.
I want to know.
Agreed.
I feel like I want to know, but I don't. What a ground beef slurry is.
Oh my
It
God, I
sounds
saw she wrote
disgusting.
that, and I was gonna ask, and yeah, that sounds terrible.
Uh, it's just I don't. Food should never be called certain words, and slurry is one of them.
Yeah,
I don't want. I
moose.
don't want
Why can't you
slurry.
use moose?
Moose would be better. Ground beef
Mm-hmm.
moose. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because ground beef slop sounds just as gross. I don't want that
Mm-hmm.
either. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Slop, slurry. Seriously?
All
Yeah,
these
none of those
nasty
sound good.
words for
Yeah.
things that we shouldn't be eating.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a ground beef shake. Yeah, I got it. I understand what
Oh, oh,
slurring would be.
I didn't
That
understand. I'm
doesn't.
glad she said
Oh,
that. Oh,
okay. Yeah, I know it's still not better, but you get a bit clearer picture.
she claims it's not bad.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah,
believe you. You need 1,000 more people. No, mm-mm. It's like our boy with his liver shakes. Sounds gross. Nope, no, thank you.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think I kind of wanted to raise this because I feel like a lot of people like are still trying to combine like the information that we get from popular culture about cutting back on fat, reducing calories, and combine that with carnivore. And
Hmm.
and I feel like that's what ends up happening is that people end up, sort of on a protein sparing modified fast, but it's not something that you can do all the time. You can't expect to live like this long term. And so, kind of thinking about how you might intersperse a little bit of that if you're trying to lose weight from time to time. That might be a more targeted and effective way to do that.
Yeah, it seems like it's for the people out there who they want to jumpstart their weight loss, or they're trying to, like, I could see this being perfect for getting past a stall.
Hmm.
Um, that is actually, yeah, that would be one of the places where I would recommend this kind of thing most. Like, oh, if you're stalling, then go lower fat, play with your
Yeah.
fat ratio, fat to protein ratio. And then if that's not working, try no fat for a day or two, like very, very low fat, and see how that goes.
Hmm. Well, and you know, um, and also when I have fallen off and I want to get back on and I want to get back on quickly, fasting plus some exercise is like the fastest way to burn up, whatever, sugar you have in your system and get back into ketosis.
Hmm.
But it also is hard and it feels kind of draconian, especially if you've been having a couple of days eating cake and burgers, and then you are like trying to not eat, and your appetite is all kicked up because you're not in ketosis. Like it's hard.
Right.
Um, but this might be an alternative way of doing it.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Okay, so that's another place that I'm good with this is to get back on track
Hmm.
for whatever reason you might have fallen off track.
Hmm.
Then, yeah, so I noticed that when I fall off, fasting feels like the natural thing to do anyway.
Hmm.
So, like, I'm just not feeling good, so I'm not hungry.
Hmm.
Um, it does make sense that in that time, if I wanted to really make sure that I'm not losing any of my lean mass, to,
Hmm.
while fasting, eat some protein
Hmm.
and to just keep it exactly there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I see C Bliss says usually the higher protein makes a person hungrier. And I guess Johnny G says it doesn't for him. Um,
Hmm.
I think so. The important thing to remember, though, is that this isn't high protein, it's just regular, or, the amount that you need, the minimum amount you need to not lose fat.
Right.
I mean, sorry, to not lose protein, but to actually lose fat. So to not lose protein. So, at no point are you eating high protein. You're just eating, just way less calories. You're just getting the protein that your body needs. You could be hungrier because, you're just not eating as many calories. But um, I feel like once you kind of get used to it, maybe you wouldn't find yourself that much hungrier. So I don't know.
Is there a getting used to this? It doesn't sound like there is.
I mean, if you're doing it once a couple times a week or whatever, um, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If you're, yeah, I could see that. I was thinking the other two ways of doing it where it lasts a lot
Yeah.
longer.
Well, I did the Dukan diet for some time. Yeah.
How long?
Uh, I don't know. Maybe I lasted like a week. Yeah.
Okay. So, I
Yeah.
mean, at that point, you basically did the live McDonald diet then.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
his was 4 or 5 days for bodybuilders, so you just did the bodybuilder version of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then early on in my carnivore journey, I did it again, the protein sparing modified fast. And that time I did it about, I'd say about 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm.
And I noticed I became more and more depressed. I didn't feel bad physically and I wasn't super hungry, but my mood just tanked. And that was something that I wasn't expecting or even looking for. So, and I only noticed it because someone, I had gotten short ribs and I made short ribs and I ate them. And within about 20 minutes, my my it was like angels started singing. I mean, the joy that welled up in my body, I mean, and in my mind, I just was suddenly happy for no reason. And it was at that point that I was like, oh, I needed that fat, and it just
Mm.
filled.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the next 2 days, I had the short ribs again and got that feeling again. Thereafter, I didn't get that feeling, but it was clear that I had gotten behind. Now, so that's to say, so I would say 3 weeks of this is maybe not, going to work, but maybe one day on and then 2 days off, and one day on and 2 days off would be just fine. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of, my general bent is towards intuitive, natural eating.
Hmm.
And I think this feels to me like a lever you pull when nothing else is working.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone like regularly doing this for a while, and but longer than like probably the Emmerich way. Any more intense than the Emmerich way sounds like just torture.
Yeah.
Like one
Yeah.
meal, maybe one day, okay, maybe can deal with that. I've got in a week, I've got somewhere from 12 to 13 other meals that I can eat. I guess I'm assuming 2 meals a day because I'm
Hmm.
talking kind of personally, like that I can live and be happy with. I just had one meal that was high protein, nothing else, or not high protein, but it was all protein. There were no carbs, no fat in it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, so and a plug for the podcast that's going to be coming out next week. I did get a chance to interview Craig Emmerich, and we got to talk about some of this. But there was a sort of I guess a kerfuffle a couple of years ago when
I love that
Steve.
word.
Yeah. I think Steve Finney and Jeff Volek had given some paper at a conference basically saying that fasting is really bad for you because if you go for longer than 24 hours, you lose about a quarter of a pound of muscle per day.
Mm.
So extended fasting is really bad. That was what
Mm.
they were saying. And they just said fasting was bad. And so at the time, everyone who did everything from intermittent fasting to 30 days of fasting was like, what? And so there was a lot of discussion and debate about that. And so you know what the Emmerichs were saying anyway is that fasting, fasting for longer than 24 hours, if you're risking losing protein, you're risking losing muscle, is that's not a good idea. And so they're offering the protein sparing modified fast as a way to fast but while sparing the muscle in your body. That's the idea behind it. And that was the
Mm.
idea behind it when it was a medically supervised diet, for obese patients who needed to have surgery or something to reduce the weight as quickly as possible while sparing, your lean body mass.
I can roll with that. It's almost like
Yeah.
a lesser of two evil things because I'm not really into fasting either. Like it's not a thing I want to do, and I kind of wonder about like, especially like the long fast, whether anyone should kind of do it. Like, I understand that it happens. I understand that we're built to withstand periods of not eating. Um, but wow,
Hmm.
what did
Yeah.
they say it was 3/4 of a pound every day past 24 hours?
No, a quarter of a pound.
Quarter of a pound.
And so then I heard there, the discussion after that kerfuffle was that that number decreases the longer you fast. So by
Mm,
day 28, you're not losing a quarter of a pound every day, but but by day 28, you still might have lost 5 pounds of muscle, and that's not, I don't know, so that's not good. You
no,
know,
very, very much not good.
so this is what some of the researchers are saying. So I am not saying that that is definitive and out there, but that's part of the discussion that people are thinking about when they're talking about fasting. But if you're
Mm,
fasting up to 24 hours, there usually isn't a risk for losing muscle. So and if you're working out and lifting weights, I mean, the action of lifting weights is what helps you to build muscle. So you would be protecting your muscle by actually using it. And that was why Lyle McDonald was like, you have to lift weights while you do this, because that's what's going to protect your muscle and keep it
mm.
from losing it. Um, but so this is all scientific, but it still goes back to what that guy said in the very beginning, which is don't do this. Just
So
plan accordingly, prepare, give yourself the months that you need to lose weight instead of trying to do it all in a week.
right. So all right. Side question: were you lifting weights while you were doing the
Yeah,
PSMF?
yeah, I was actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and Oprah did it, very well. I don't think she lifted weights, but but of course we saw the results. So I do remember that episode though of of her show where she came out in those like Gloria Vanderbilt skinny jeans and the boots, and she pulled the wagon behind her with all the weight that well, actual fat weighing what she lost.
Hmm.
So I yeah, actually, I think my mom did Medifast, or was supposed to. Drank the shakes for one day, and then there was like 2 months worth of shakes in the cupboard thereafter. So I tried it for a couple of days in high school. It was awful. I couldn't do it.
So is that basically what Slim Fast is too? Or no, Slim Fast has carbs in it, doesn't it?
Uh, I think they've changed their formulation, so it's now artificial sweetener. But when I was in high school, I think it was there was sugar and stuff in it.
Okay.
Um, well, there are other um, shake programs, but they were not that medical one, which was tightly controlled what was in it and all of that. So that was
Hmm.
a different thing. But I'm sure there were people who were like, "Oh well, I can't afford that expensive one. Let me just get some Slim Fast."
Right.
Yeah. And I see says I was under the thought that the muscle loss during a fast is protein needed to be reworked or cleaned out. So that was the rebuttal to the Finney and Volek argument. That especially if you're very heavy, it is okay to lose protein. Like we have a lot of extra connective tissue and skin that is meant to carry the extra weight that we have, and that is not protein that you need. So it's good to lose protein in that sense. So I think that the argument is not settled. And so I want to be clear that I'm not saying that the um, uh, that the science is all clear and laid out, and that everybody is more or less in agreement. It's not settled.
Hmm.
So I think that that is fair. But if you are, perhaps if you are closer to your goal weight and you're trying to lose the last few pounds, the fasting might not work as well as doing a protein sparing modified fast. That's something to think
Yeah.
about. So again, this is really about applying the right lever for you, and being and thinking about what you can do long term. So if you are happy with fasting and water fasting and it's working for you, then keep going with it. You don't need to change it. But if you're struggling with that, or if you're much closer to your goal weight, then you might need to try doing something like this and see how that goes for you.
Yeah. And I guess I would also think, I, tell me if you agree or not, even if you're happy with water fasting, if there is this possibility of losing muscle mass, losing lean body mass, which we should never want to lose, unless that theory actually proves true that the loss is just it's protein that you didn't need anyway, which I'm not sure I believe that or not. But if all you needed to do was eat something lean along with your fasting, and then you could be sure that you're keeping all your lean mass, you're keeping all your muscle, all your bone marrow, all that stuff, shouldn't you at least think about it?
You could. I mean, the only stumbling block there is if you are seeking autophagy, um, having protein will, theoretically stop that.
Well, autophagy is happening all the time, but I guess the increased levels of autophagy that are coming with
Hmm.
fasting, that's going to be stopped
Yeah.
by eating some protein.
Well, I think autophagy is happening all the time, but it ramping up to the levels that people are looking for when they're fasting,
Yeah.
that is blocked when you eat protein. Now I've seen Dr. Fung say whatever it takes for you to get comfortable doing it. So if you need to drink some bone broth, if you need to do something like that, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. But if you're trying to battle cancer, if there's something really serious going on, then you need to not eat anything, and to make that sure that those benefits are coming in the way that you're looking for.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah, and Miss M says Dr. Fung says to think the body is so dumb to prioritize using protein as a fuel or fat, which is why it's stored, we would have died long ago. Yeah, so that was a response to Dr. Finney coming out and saying that it's a much more nuance. But I've also heard Dr. Fung say, well, it seems like they really focus on intermittent fasting and not longer extended fasting, unless they're dealing with a patient who's got an imminent like amputation. Um, so I feel like they kind of moved more towards focusing on intermittent fasting. But I've definitely heard them say, even if I mean, sometimes you look on YouTube and you see these people who are like, I'm doing a 40-day water fast, or
Oh, Jesus.
yeah, and so it's that might be great, but it's just like one time, and so those benefits don't continue. But if you do, one meal a day for, a year, you're going to achieve more than you would, with that 130-day fast or 40-day
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. And if you're thinking about what the fasting does, is it lowers your insulin levels so that your body can reach. I saw this it described today as repair mode.
Hmm.
Um, you want to be in that for as long as possible. So whatever you do needs to be sustainable. It doesn't. Yeah, it's not going to have as much of an effect if you really go hard. You really knock it out for 40 days.
Yeah.
Insulin was super low because I wasn't eating anything. I was literally only drinking water. Okay, great. And then
Yeah.
after that, what'd you do?
Yeah.
You probably ate
Well,
like a
they
jerk
use,
again, and your
yeah,
insulin was right back up. So overall, if we look at that entire
yeah,
year, your
yeah,
insulin had one little dip, and then it was high the whole rest of the time. On average, your insulin's high.
yeah.
You haven't been giving yourself the chance to, really be in autophagy.
So this is why we got to have this conversation with an engineer. You're looking at systems over a length of time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's where my mind goes.
yeah, yeah. So, and so we got a lot of people in here. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and click the little bell icon so you can get notification every time we go live.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, so yeah, so this isn't, I'm not trying to pit, water fasting against protein sparing modified fast. These are just tools. But I do, want to say that I think overall, you need to have, and even with Lyle McDonald, there were carb refeeds and there were, carb and calorie refeeds. I don't think he did fat refeeds, but there is you're going to have to, go back to eating like a keto carnivore lifestyle. And these might be like syncopated moments in your journey, not the norm.
Yeah, I wouldn't. None of these, besides maybe the Emmerich's way of doing it,
Hmm.
is a long term solution.
Yeah.
These are short term solutions to, I guess, like short term problems. Like, I just got to get past this, or I just want to
Hmm.
lose a bunch of weight. I'm really tired and not feeling healthy, and I want to get
Hmm.
there quick.
Yeah. Well,
None of
Miss M.
these,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Lyle expected you to do it for at most like 6 weeks.
Well,
And
that was if you were majorly or obese. So
right.
yeah.
So yeah, majorly obese, even then, 6 weeks. That majorly obese person isn't going to drop down to slim in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
They're not going to lose like all of their weight, all 150 pounds of fat or something like that. Like, that's not happening.
Hmm.
So even then, it's not long term. It's not all of your fat loss doesn't come from eating this way.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
not the expectation. And nobody else, except maybe Duquesne with his crazy self, seemed to have the expectation that you were supposed to stick with this long term.
Hmm. Yeah. And I see Miss M says she just watched a video with Dr. Fung, and he said 2 to 3 day fast every 2 to 3 months, along with daily intermittent, is better. There are benefits you get with a 3 day fast that you don't get with intermittent fasting.
Mm.
Yeah, and actually, I think I watched that same video, Miss M, and I actually got Dr. Fung. I guess he just released a new book, Cancer Code, which talks all about cancer and the various approaches that people have taken, and it's actually really been fascinating. I'm glad I started reading it, and in a way, it helped me kind of understand some of the stuff that was happening with my mom last year, and so yeah, he kind of talks about uh, well, eating it, smoking there's a 35% risk or increased risk of cancer, and being obese there's a
Sheesh.
30% increased risk of cancer, and then all the other things you can carcinogenic things that we come in contact with, there might be like a 2% or 3% increased risk. So dealing with weight is really really important, and
Mm-hmm.
overeating generally is a problem. And so he yeah, I kind of got what he was saying about needing to do more fasting. And I wonder, what we call fasting, like I think in other countries it's just like normal. And I remember, I had a friend of the family who is, from Nigeria, and he's like close to 90 now. But even when I was spending more time with him in his early 80s, like he hardly ever ate. And when he would watch us Americans around him eating, he would just be like, I don't know, what are you doing? And I'm like, how are you eating so little? And he wasn't like a small guy. And I'm like, how are you eating so little? And he's just like, you all eat so much. Why do you eat so much? So I don't know. It just kind of begs the question: are we fasting, or are we just trying to get back to normal? And when I was a kid, and I went to school in France in the summers a couple of times, and when I first went, when we first started eating there, I mean, I was stunned when they brought the food. It was like, you know, really, where's the rest of it? And
Mm,
everybody lost weight. And I even more so because I didn't like bread, so there was nothing to eat, and it gave us a little something, but it wasn't much. And
hmm.
so I kind of wonder, for us, like, is the benefit really just that we're eating less? I don't know.
It could be. I don't know. It's hard for me to accept that. I guess seeing the results that I've felt in myself, it's hard to accept that we as a species should be eating way less. I think way less and way less often than sad diet. Yes, definitely. 6 meals a day is not the business. That's not the move. But to be, I don't know, to feel like I'm only eating half as much as what I my body feels like it wants, I'm gonna be really sad if somehow it turns out that that's what I should be doing because I enjoy I enjoy eating. I enjoy the feeling of having. I guess it feels optimal to me. I'll put it that way. It feels optimal to eat when I'm hungry.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess I don't know. For you, it may not be as much of a difference as it is for me or for someone else. I mean, I
Hmm.
know, like when I was on a low carb streak for a long time, I'd say like 2007 to 2009 maybe, and I got to the point where I had sort of measured out. I'd have 4 ounces of turkey and my vegetable serving, and and no rice and stuff. And at lunch, I'd have my 4 ounces of turkey with my salad, and then I would have 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and blah blah blah.
Oh.
So I did that, but after a while, my I just like my I got accustomed to it, and it was enough food. Even though I thought it wasn't going to be enough food, it was enough food. And so
Hmm.
my stomach shrunk. And then even when I would, I might come home and be like, "Oh man, what a day. I'm going to watch a movie and like eat a whole pizza." And then but I couldn't, my stomach had shrunk such that I just could not physically pack in the same volume of food that I had once had. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know about for you, but for me, I know what I think I need is not necessarily, you know, the
Right.
the minimum amount I need to maintain myself.
Yeah, and that is a thing. The I guess like the shrinking or the expansion of the stomach, and we kind of like we take it as a badge of honor to just eat and eat, especially of junk food. So it's finished the whole bag. It's like, do you remember that commercial where the guy says, "I can't believe it. I can't believe I ate the whole thing," and he's talking about a pizza.
That was for Alka Seltzer, right?
I think so,
Yeah,
because he
yeah,
had indigestion after,
yeah, yeah.
and
And there was a little song that ended with diarrhea, indigestion, diarrhea. Yeah, I remember.
that I don't remember. I don't remember the song, but
Yeah.
like it's like a badge of honor to like eat a ton of
Mm-hmm.
food,
Mm-hmm.
and we probably do. I guess I don't know the science behind it, so I have to say probably, but like expand our stomachs and get more and more used to more and more food.
Mm-hmm.
Where if we had been eating intuitively and of the right things that weren't addictive from earlier on, or you giving yourself enough time to reset the size of your stomach, because I assume if it can expand, that it can also shrink, then yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we would generally eat less. I do find that um, it's easier since being carnivore, probably because it fills me up enough that I don't feel the need to eat
Right.
until I'm like size full, like just a
Mm-hmm.
large mass of food filling my stomach. It does feel like I have an easier time getting full and feeling full and not like um not just eating and eating and eating
Mm-hmm.
until I'm stuffed, or what I
Right.
thought would be enough food is actually a little bit too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that can happen too, like especially if I go fast, because like the fat, it kicks in and makes you feel full, but sometimes it's a little slower than like I'm eating. So I'll find that I've gone too far, but I don't know it until a little time has passed.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's a thing too. Yep.
yeah. But Esther, I see, says, so many of us were told to eat until satisfied, and now we're saying only eat four meatballs. I'm confused. Is the message changing? No, the message is not changing. Esther, I am sorry to confuse you. We're sort of discussing some things that are, being discussed in the carnivore community and some options. But especially in the beginning, when you're just getting started, you want to, just get yourself used to being on a carnivore diet, used to being in keto, enjoying it, learning your body and responding to your body's signals. So if
Mm-hmm.
you are losing at the pace you want to, you're improving in your health and you are feeling great, then that's it. You don't have to do anything else. Later on, if
Right.
you feel like you want to experiment and tweak, that's when this conversation might be useful. So for you, Esther, and for any beginners watching, calm down, don't do anything. You're doing great just as you are.
Right. And it's when you proposed this idea to me for this topic, I said like, oh, so it's about losing weight, because that's the only reason somebody would want to go low fat. Um, so you, for some reason, have lost access to fat loss, and you want to get it back somehow. This is a
Mm-hmm.
way that you might do it. It's not the only way, um, but it's a possibility. And I would not recommend it to anybody who things are going well for, or who isn't so pressed about like losing that last 10 pounds or losing those last couple inches. Like, if you're just fine with what's been going on, if you're fine how you are, you're fine with the pace of your weight loss now, or even if it slows down, you're going to be okay. And
Mm-hmm.
especially if what you're focused on is being happy, this ain't it. Stay away. Which is really, I guess that's another way to look at it. And that reframes the argument I was making earlier. What's most important to me is being happy, not being small. So anything that sounds like unhappiness, I'm very reluctant to do.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough. I totally get that. Yeah. Unfortunately, not everybody is in that mindset. Yeah, I think that's why we have to have just like an open discussion, and not everybody is here and doing carnivore for the same reason. So weight loss might not be, your goal at all. It might never have been your goal. So that's something to consider as well. Um,
Yeah.
and I see wrote. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I see a lot of people who come in strictly for weight loss, and
Hmm.
very quickly they get to this sort of thinking.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why you mean of focusing on happiness instead of weight
No,
loss,
no,
or
the other way.
oh, right, right.
They're focused on weight loss, so they're going like, all right, so and it's normally a workout nut too. So they're
Yeah.
like, all right, so I work out for about an hour and a half, 4 days a week, moderate to heavy. how do I get my electrolytes in balance, and how many days should I fast? And it's like, well, first of all, we didn't tell you to fast in the first place,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're like, the things that you're doing are so specific and so intense and so different from regular human life that you really got to jump in. Like, you got to find carnivores who bodybuild
Yeah.
or who weight train extensively
Yeah.
to give that sort of advice.
Yeah.
Like, anything that I say is going to be for basically regular people because I don't
Yeah.
live that life.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Ditto.
it's normally those people who are then going towards, well, I want to lose weight faster, or it's starting to slow down. They're like measuring it kind of obsessively. And then they're going,
Hmm.
okay, so it's slowing down now. The rate of weight loss is slowing down. I used to be 2 pounds a week. Now it's just one. What's going on, guys?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I see says this is only being spoken about like this is out of a choice. If it is thought of as ancestral, we would have to consider the lean times of not having food for whatever reason, hunting or drought or whatever. So yeah, I mean for sure in all of human history, we did not have always steady, constant access to food. Like that's really I don't know, in the last like 25 years, 30 years that people have been trying to eat all the time and have
Right.
the expectation of having access to food at any moment of the day, all at all
Hmm.
times. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then
So,
her
here
next comment was, if hunting, we would eat to stuff, trying to finish the mammoth, and but then go hungry a bit until the next kill.
mhm.
I don't completely agree with that.
Oh, okay. Why
I
why do you think?
think because I think we knew how to preserve the food. So I don't
Mhm.
think it was literally, we got to finish this mammoth in 2 days or it's going to go bad. And then who knows when's the next time we kill one. I think you
Mhm.
kill something that big with all that fat on it, you learn some ways to preserve that meat so that, yeah, I think you do feast that day, but I think you hold on to it.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, for sure. I mean, like woolly mammoths, that's what we were hunting back in those days, not cows, were, bigger than elephants. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of food. So, yes, we, would have, I mean, this has been what humans have done throughout history is figure out ways to preserve food until we got the refrigerator.
Right.
So, yeah. We did, and that's why also our stomachs are so acidic is to deal with eating meat that has been around for quite some time. So that is a normal part of the human body. But surely there are just periods where there's no food. I mean, even if it means that I also like to think about like just the process of preparing food and especially before refrigerators and dishwashers and all of that stuff and a stove and everything, the process of preparing food is it's a lot of work. So I'm sure whoever was in charge of that is like, no, 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 you're eating this time, and this is when food is available, and you're not doing it all the other times because I'm not going in and cooking
Oh,
all the
yeah.
stuff and cleaning up again. So I would imagine even when there's food, like you just don't eat all the time because it's work. It's a lot of work to get food and
Right.
prepare it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think, and that part at least doesn't require any thought on carnivore. You are not
Hmm.
going to be eating all the time.
Yeah.
You just won't want it. If you eat a full meal until you're happily satisfied, you're not eating again
Hmm.
right after that. You're not like an hour later, like, let me run in the kitchen and grab some jerky or something, like a carnivore snack.
Hmm.
I don't think so. Not after you fat adapt.
Yeah. So Greg says, I found getting rid of the carbs and eating more fat is the real winner for me. I use more of a Dr. Fung approach. I use a multi-day fast, one a week. Yeah. So that's
Hmm.
great. I'm glad that's working for you and you feel comfortable with it. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and bay it. Yeah, and certainly, I mean, yes, if you're killing a woolly mammoth, you're not feeding like a family of four. You're feeding like not only the whole tribe, but the neighboring ones and doing some trading and stuff. So, it would definitely be a community affair.
Yeah, but I think the point that they're making is, oh, it's a community affair. It's you're feeding a tribe, so the whole thing would be eaten at that one time, and then
Hmm.
it's lean times after. And I just it it feels like we're a species that can survive fasting, not that should fast.
Hmm.
That's and yes, I'm perfectly biased on that because I don't want to do it. So I don't feel like we're just like we're doing something wrong if we're not fasting, and this is
Hmm.
how we what we evolved to do was to eat and then not eat for a good amount of time and then finally eat again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's something we're definitely built to do. Like we can do it. I
Yeah.
think we're good at it.
Yeah. Well, I was always curious about how people ate, and so during my anthropology days, I would like look at that, and when I was studying different indigenous groups around the world, and I remember seeing one place, I guess in South America, where they were noted, or it was just noted in the ethnographies that they ate once every other day, including the kids. Like everybody just ate once every other day, and they just didn't spend a lot of time, with food prep and focused on food. And I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even well, even when I was reading that book, Stefansson book about the Inuit, um, they ate mostly dinner at night, and then they might have a snack at other points in time during the day. But it was mostly like the communal dinner, and then that was kind of it.
So they were basically one meal a day with an
Hmm.
occasional snack in between.
Hmm.
Hmm, that makes sense.
Yeah. Um,
I wonder what their snacks were.
oh, it was like various kinds of frozen fish, or blubber. Yeah, it was some kind of well, yeah, it was some kind of frozen fish that they would eat like raw but frozen.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's like me pulling trimmings out and just heating those up and eating a few of those because I'm not really hungry, but I want something.
Hmm. Well, I mean, if you're out on the tundra and it's a little different. I think it's probably a lot of maybe it's a little work to pull out a snack in
I don't understand. No, I'm saying like
40 below.
they ate a small amount and
Hmm.
then they went back to what they were doing. And sometimes it was protein, that's what that fish was, or sometimes it was fat, that's what the blubber
Hmm.
was.
Well, so when I'm think the passage that I'm thinking of, they were describing like being outside and fishing and stuff. So this was just like while they're out there working. So the
Hmm.
snack, I'm kind of like, I don't know how you enjoy a snack when it's like 40 below and the wind is howling. It's not like they went inside somewhere and had the snack.
Oh, I
Yeah.
I mean, enjoy might be a strong word for kind of anything they did throughout the day besides, well, actually, no, because I remember watching a video about them and he said like the children play like normal and stuff. So it's not like
Hmm.
life was so rough and horrible out there. It just sounds that way to me because I mean, I'm from
I mean,
Cleveland. I
if
can
you're
do a
wearing
little
the
bit of
right
cold.
clothes, yeah. If you're wearing the right gear, like it's not so bad. They seem to be okay with it.
Right.
Yeah, like you said.
Yeah.
So beautifully yours says it caused you to binge eat after. Were you talking about a protein sparing modified fast or just fasting in general? Binging afterwards is, that's definitely a thing, and that's something you kind of, you've got to get under control. And if you feel like you can't, maybe fasting isn't right for you at this time.
Said earlier that it was yes, did it once for 3 days, couldn't do it again. I don't know actually. I'm not
Yeah, I
seeing the
wasn't
context
clear.
with that, but I would imagine either one might make you binge after a protein sparing or the just plain old fasting.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, so Katura says, "Come on, Arian, get into fasting." Yeah,
Not happening.
yeah.
I will kind of fast some days. I'll have days where I eat less than others. Like today was one of those days. Bacon and eggs for breakfast at around 11ish o'clock, and I
Hmm.
was stuffed after. And then since then, I've only had a little bit of liver and some trimmings,
Hmm.
and that will
Okay.
probably be all I eat tonight. So as far as I'm concerned, that's me fasting from breakfast till probably when I eat tomorrow. Full on fast, you guys with your alternate day and your 3 day fast, and y'all can have it.
But okay, but how is one meal a day not fasting?
Oh, no, it is. But see, that's the thing. I think when most people talk about fasting, they are not including intermittent fasting in that. I think they are talking about a separate thing. So in that
Hmm.
sense, I fast all the time. I never eat more than twice in a day.
Hmm.
And those two meals are normally somewhere from something like 3 to 7 hours apart. And then I
Hmm.
don't eat for the rest of the day, don't eat till the next day. So I'm always intermittent fasting, except
Hmm.
I don't try to do it. It just intuitively happens.
Hmm.
But when we talk about like the thing that even got this all kind of started was the killing the mammoth
The what?
and killing the mammoth
Oh,
and
uh-huh.
then lean after that.
Uh-huh.
I don't think anyone tell me if you interpreted that differently, but I don't think anybody would say that thinking about, oh, it's lean until the next day when you kill another mammoth.
I think everybody is thinking that people are killing animals daily to eat.
I,
That's what
I
I
don't think
hear
so.
when I hear people talking about it. I feel like that's kind of the assumption that people are going and hunting daily or every couple of days. But but in any event, I mean that's neither here nor there. But when
Well,
I
we'll
say
see.
fasting, well, when I say fasting, I'm talking about anywhere from 16 hours to, a week. So, but obviously those are very different. So,
Right.
and where you draw that cutoff, I don't know. Is it 24 hours? Is it 36 hours? That's, that varies.
Yeah.
But yeah, perhaps we should be more clear and say, what we mean by fasting,
Yeah.
water
Because I
fasting.
think I think your interpretation of it is loose. And I don't mind it being loose. That's kind of how I would use it. Yeah, fasting or
Are you calling me a
no, I
loose woman? Mm-mm.
didn't see that coming.
Mm.
I don't have another joke to run off of that. Damn. So, um I think most people don't think of fasting that way. When they say the word fasting, I think they
Mhm.
normally mean, at the very least, alternate day fasting. But what they really mean is 2 or 3 days and up from there. So starting at
Hmm.
a couple days at least and then going somewhere higher. So people like me who just eat intuitively, which ends up being 2 meals a day, intermittent fasting, I'm not included in their ranks of fasting, I don't think. And I think most people, when they're thinking about, when the justification for alternate day fasting or for any sort of extended fasting based on anthropology is normally that We would eat, we would hunt, we would eat, and then we would not be able to eat again for a while, at least a few days. They're not thinking of hunting all the time, successfully hunting and then eating something, at least on a daily basis. And that Bayed and are right there in the comments, both
Mm-hmm.
saying, no, that's not what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think fasting would be a lot easier if that was how we evolved and thrived. And now I'm saying fasting meaning more than a day.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, going back, Leon said growing up in his country, his grandfather used to hunt and many times would smoke the meat to preserve it, and when he had to travel a far distance. I mean, I think,
Hmm.
in my opinion, we mastered the art of preserving meat so that there would be something for when, we didn't, for whatever reason, couldn't, kill something. So that sounded really, that was a vulgar way of saying it, when we weren't successful in a hunt. But so I think that in many cases we would have been prepared. I mean, that's what pemmican is for. That is what, jerky and biltong and all these other types of preserved meats are for. So, and I think that humans are very smart, very capable, and very talented hunters. So we would have been prepared for those kinds of times. Although, still things happen. So there surely would be times when we wouldn't have access to food. But I don't know that I feel like it would have been regularly days at a time, let's say multiple times a month. I don't know. I feel like we would have been better
Yeah.
at it than that. Yeah.
It it's kind of hard to believe that a what's the right way to put this? No, I don't know. I don't know enough about evolutionary theory and anthropology to really say what I feel
Hmm.
like saying, which is that we wouldn't have made it this far if we evolved that way. We wouldn't have made it this far to get to being the animals that we are now if we had evolved that way. I don't know enough to say that, but that's what my gut says.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We were better at it than that. I mean, there were big things that happened, like shifting out of the ice age. I mean, there were mass extinctions and things happened, but those were, you know, unusual moments, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like generally, there were fewer of us, and we knew how to. We learned how to hunt. We learned how to throw spears. We also knew how to scavenge kills. Like I don't think that we just lost that ability or that desire. So we were
I know.
getting
Have you
bone
ever
marrow.
seen that video of a tribesman in Africa fighting a lion for the haunch of a zebra? That I
Mm,
think the lion had killed it, and the guy was going to take it, and so he
nice.
fought off successfully, fought off a lion, and took the haunch of the zebra. It was like, man, now you talk about courage. I
I
mean,
mean,
wow.
there's like two two driving motivations for life. It's like food and sex, food and reproduction,
Hmm.
and we'll
Yeah.
do some crazy things if we're hungry enough.
Yeah, yeah. But the fasting part, I would imagine that fasting was a regular part of our lives, but more so because just access to food was just not that simple. You
Hmm.
know, especially if you've got, you know, a woolly mammoth size, you know, amount of meat. I mean, first of all, you've got to fight off all the other scavengers who are like, hey, that smells good. I want
Right.
some. Yeah. So,
Hey, I heard y'all killed a woolly mammoth out here.
yeah, here's my plate. Where's my
Right.
portion? Yeah. So, you know, it's not like you could just have some over there in the cupboard and you can just go and take some when you feel like it. Like, you've got to
Hmm.
defend, you know, you've got to defend this stuff. So, like, it's not, you know, so um, eating just wasn't so simple before that you could do it quickly and easily. We have snack food and food that's already prepared and ready to eat now so that you can just eat as you walk through the kitchen and do a drive by or you run into a bodega and grab something, but that wasn't
Hmm.
always the case.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like the fasting, especially the fasting that you're talking about, so maybe I should use the phrase short-term fasting versus long-term fasting. um, Sorry, 99 Corrado says, I've never been to the meat department in Walmart. A lion child's play. Yeah, great.
So 99 Corrado is in there with the
Yeah, yeah.
the brass
So,
knuckles or something, ready to defend. This is my ribeye. I got to it first.
yeah, yeah. To a lion.
To a lion, to a grandma, to whoever it is, whatever
Yeah,
threat is in
yeah,
there.
yeah. So, so if we're talking about short-term fasting, anything less than 24 hours, I think that that was, you know, always a part of our lives because
Yep.
it's just, you know, it's hard to deal with meat and or dealing with food. And then over that, you know, who knows? I mean, but it's also very much a part of religion. I think Bayet mentioned before, you know, eating 2 meals a day before dawn and after sunset and dry fasting in between. You know, there are millions of Muslims who do this for what, 6 weeks every year.
Yeah. Is
So
that how long Ramadan is?
it's a while. I don't know.
I thought it was a straight up month, but it's something around that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a longish time. So, you know, so the fact that this stuff has become so ingrained in religion, just, I don't know, it begs the question like, this must have been important to us for some reason, somehow, you know,
Yeah.
like fasting doesn't just become a part of our culture and our belief system if it didn't have some importance in our lives.
Yeah. It definitely came from somewhere. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I like what Leon says. A fasted man has less sexual energy compared to a well fed one. Yes. Yes. It's true. I think that I think that goes for women too. Like women, y'all fast too long and y'all lose your periods, the premenopausal ones. So like I think that is another piece of evidence that leads me to believe that the healthier person is the eating person.
Hmm.
Now, but there's definitely overeating. And oh, this is the point I wanted to make. So back to what you were saying about short-term fasting. That it's that is an everyday part of natural human life. I completely agree with that. And my personal evidence for it is that it was as easy as cutting out carbohydrates. And I just naturally did this. I
Hmm.
never tried to eat less. It just happened. I don't remember the last time I ate 3 meals in a day. And I used to do that all the time. It was
Hmm.
breakfast and then lunch, and those all had carbs in them somewhere, a good
Hmm.
amount of bread, and then still would eat dinner. And only every once in a while would I not eat dinner.
Hmm. Well, and that's
Now my
why.
breakfast and my lunch are
Mhm.
combined. Sorry,
No, no.
that's it. Go ahead.
Well, that I mean, that's why we talk about um, not using the word fasting, but just eat when you're hungry, stop, and don't eat till you're hungry again. And that could well be 24 hours later,
Hmm.
or in your case, you know, you like to do 2 meals a day. So, So, fasting is very much a part, I mean, short-term fasting is very much a part of many people's lives.
Yeah. And I think that's my goal for anyone carnivore, and like in our Zooms, and if anybody were to ever ask, like, well, how do I start? Like, you start by just eating.
Hmm.
And at some point, you will naturally fall into an eating pattern that is less than what you were eating before when you were eating whatever.
Hmm.
And at that point, then you can think about enforcing a fasting schedule on yourself or something like that.
Hmm.
Because you'll already be in intermittent fasting just
Yeah,
naturally.
yeah. Well, how many of you who are here in the chat just put in how many meals do you eat in a day? What's your norm? Is it
Yeah,
one meal, two meals, or three meals?
that's a good
And
question.
and I'm gonna try to be more specific when I say short-term fasting. I mean less than 24 hours, and extended fasting longer than 24 hours. Although, I definitely think there's a difference between, 36 and, I mean, I don't know, maybe even 36 isn't that much longer. I mean, that's just a day, really.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Like if you're fasting for just say 24 to 48 hours, that is a different level of commitment and uh, I guess the not just commitment, but like the mental processes that are happening
mhm,
versus 6 days, even probably 3 or 4 days.
mhm,
I feel like somewhere within 24 to 48 hours, it becomes a different kind of fast again.
yeah,
So it's like there's a short term, there's a middle term, and then there's everything beyond that.
mhm, yeah. So I'm seeing um, most commonly two meals a day, some one meal a day, and some sort of 1 to 2 meals a day.
Hmm.
And does mostly OMAD with intermittent 2 meals a day, which is usually due to more physical exercise. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, you're right. When we talk to people who, women who are coming in doing a lot of exercise, a lot of restricting, and adding on fasting, like that's a lot to do at one
Yep.
time. But at the same time, what you want to do is follow your appetite and just eat, when you're hungry, and stop when you're full, and don't eat again until you're hungry and you're, solidly hungry again, not just peckish. Um,
Yeah.
because, solidly hungry is going to taste better. But I do feel like we live in America, and or some of us do anyway, who are watching. And sorry about that.
A number of us do, but not
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. And, we're getting constant cues to eat. And so I do feel like for some of us, there is this like push pull of, eating to my physical satisfaction versus eating to my emotional, visual, you know, like entertainment satisfaction. And those
Yeah.
are two different things. And it's sometimes it's hard to distinguish between them. So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
And that I've said this before, but that's why I did like kind of pushing myself into fasting at one point so that I could see the difference between the two kinds of hunger.
Mhm.
Like right now, because I ate so little in the second half of the day, I could eat, but I know I don't need to.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know that I would have that awareness if I hadn't pushed on myself to really feel hunger.
Yeah. So what do you think? We've talked about an hour and a half now. Have we sufficiently confused everyone? I feel like we threw in a lot of concepts, and some people became a little confused about what to do next. we generally do not encourage you to do things, make things really hard, and to get
Hmm.
used to the diet, and to eat fat. This is not a low fat diet, or a low fat way of eating in the long term. Um, but but I do think fasting is something. It's almost like a dirty word. It's not allowed to be discussed in some Facebook groups and Reddit groups and stuff, but
Hmm.
everybody's doing it. So or almost everybody is doing it. So I feel like not discussing it
All
is
the cool
like,
kids are doing it.
no, 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 no. I'm not even talking about peer pressure. I'm just saying so many people are doing it that, not having a discussion about it and thinking about how it can be done more safely if you want to be doing it, that's not helpful. It is helpful to kind of lay it out on the table and just talk about what some of the arguments are. Because, I remember like that conference where, Finney came out with that talk, like the whole keto world just like exploded that day, and it was like, oh my god. But fasting, has become so ubiquitous that people were really genuinely worried and terrified. And so,
Mm.
and that's what I find so frustrating too, is when you have like people giving information that is not clear, or it's not exactly targeted for what people are doing. Like, it just rocks your sense of certainty. And of course in science you're always having to question, right? I mean,
Yep.
that's the nature of science. But it can be hard for those of us who are just trying to do the right thing and trying to get information and do the right thing and getting this conflicting information. But I do think we have to put that information out there and make it clear.
Yeah. So if you need a conclusion, it's you do not have to protein sparing modified fast. It's not required of anybody. You can do it if you want to.
Hmm.
Um, it could be a safer for your lean body mass type of fasting. It could be safer than dry or wet fasting. And there are different protocols to do it. You can do it for just, um, you can do it in a more long term way, like over the course of days, all the way down to you could just do it for a day or a meal. And the rest of your week, you go to eating regularly. And it's going to be hard to do. And it's not necessarily going to be fun, which can't be undersold. You do it too
Yeah.
long, you might mess up your hormones. What was the other thing? Well, for you, it caused depression, right?
Specifically, yes, the low fat thing. Yes.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, with all those caveats, or caveats, I never know how to say that word. Um, you may want to, you may think about it. You may want to try it. Also, if you're new, don't even know.
Hmm.
Let it go. This is just some stuff that you can hear and it can go in one ear, out the other, or you can hold on to it for later, put it, all the way back here. Um, not for you.
Hmm.
If you're new, if you're still figuring things out, if you are still early on in your process, I say no.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I felt especially frustrated in the beginning, like when I was just looking to go keto. There was a lot of talk about like starvation mode. You don't want to go into starvation mode, so you've got to eat enough. But if you eat too much, you're gonna gain weight or not lose weight. And so
Hmm.
I found myself, there was a period in time, I don't remember when this was, like maybe 2006 or 7, or I don't know, maybe even 2010 or 11. I just felt like, well, what am I supposed to do? I mean, if I eat too little, I'll gain weight, or I won't lose weight, and I'll ruin my metabolism. And if I eat too much, I'll gain weight and I'll ruin my metabolism. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
And I feel like that's a little bit of how I feel when people talk about fasting, because and I see a number of you talk about Charles Washington advising against fasting, and the early people advising against fasting, and they advise against enforced fasting for a specific time period, but they do advise to eat when you're hungry, which might be every 24 hours. So, I kind of feel like I understand like the need to have new people just get used to eating this way.
Hmm.
But then as time goes on, being told that you must eat and you must fill yourself to, you can't eat another bite. I feel like that advice is good for the newbie, but later on, maybe that's not as necessary. And so, getting to the point where I could let some of that go, that was a little hard for me. I felt a similar kind of frustration of being given two conflicting messages.
Right. And yeah, that's why I like to keep it really simple up front. And it's mostly still how I live. I play with things, but I just eat. When you're
Hmm.
new, just eat. Don't worry about the
Yeah,
amount of food. Just eat. And that
yeah.
apparently that's exactly what Charles Washington says. So I need to pay attention to this guy. He's
Hmm.
somehow only very recently in my journey of understanding carnivore in the body have I started hearing about him. Like a year ago, I had no idea what he was or who he was.
He's like the grandfather of the carnivore movement. He
Right,
started the first group. Yeah,
and he's black,
yeah,
which it really frustrates me. I
yeah.
don't know how I didn't know about him.
Yeah. I was actually in his group years ago,
Mm.
but I didn't I didn't participate. I just read messages. So, and I didn't have the courage to try carnivore at that time. But yeah.
So you were aware of it way before you actually did it.
Oh yeah, for years, like a decade. Well, not a decade. Well, yeah, actually maybe. I think maybe the first time I came across it was like 2007.
Why didn't you try it?
Because I believed that vegetables were important, because that's what we were told. And I
So
just couldn't wrap my head around not eating vegetables.
so there's all these meat crazed people that you were paying attention to,
Hmm.
but you didn't believe them enough to try it.
Hmm. Because I, like a lot of people, I was trying to straddle or draw in like advice from two different camps and
Mm,
meld them together. And I feel like the people who are trying to do low fat carnivore are trying to do the same thing. We're told, good fat, avoid saturated fat, eat your vegetable and seed oil. So they're trying to do that and trying to go low fat, but also trying to have animal foods. So
mm,
what that leads to is a chicken and fish diet. So then, the question is there a way to bring those things together and use it in a targeted way that is not harmful, but helpful? So I
right.
see Erica wrote, I lost more when I stuck to air fried naked chicken and fish, which is lower in fat, lower in calories, but I became exhausted and was tempted to overeat. So I wonder if she wouldn't have had, more success, having, 2 days of like ribeye and then one day of, fish and naked chicken and then a day of ribeye and then a day of fish and naked chicken. So you would get some portion of that, reduction in fat, and in calories essentially as well, but
Hmm.
not so much that it would exhaust you or deplete you.
Yeah, yeah, because that
Hmm.
exhausted and tempted to overeat.
Hmm.
The exhausted thing is that was that a thing that Lyle warned people about too?
Yeah, yeah, that's what happens. He said all the things: exhausted, won't feel like working out, you're going to feel awful, don't do it. That's what he said. It was real clear.
Don't do it. That's the
Um,
other thing of all this. You could just
mhm.
not do this,
Yeah.
or
Or
or you could do
yeah,
it. in a very, very easy fashion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what A just suggested. Maybe just one day a week,
Yeah.
and then go back to eating regular.
Yeah. So
But
says, I'm bringing in added stress versus hermetic good stress. I'm not sure what comment which she was referring to, but
she said that a minute ago. I can't remember though. But I feel like at the
hmm
time I understood it.
hmm yeah.
And see, Kentora didn't know about Charles Washington either. I feel like there is a realm of carnivore influencers, maybe the newish ones, who didn't, they're not connected to the zeroing in on health community, and they never talk about him. In fact, they never talk about, so like yeah, the veterans, Kelly Hogan
hmm
calls them.
hmm
I only started hearing about them because I follow Kelly Hogan.
hmm
Before then, never heard of these people. All these like 10 plus year carnivores. Like I would be in the zero carb subreddit and people would mention, yeah, the 10-year vets do XYZ, or there's a bunch of vets who don't salt their food at all. And but they wouldn't say who these people were. They wouldn't link
hmm
to anything where these people were saying these things. So the only vet I actually knew of by name is the bear.
Dana, I see is mentioning Dana. She's another vet.
Hmm.
She
Reduce
said that
fat.
a number of the older carnivore crowd had to reduce fat to 60/40. Uh, yeah, well, I think Charles Washington is just not like the influencer type. Like he follows me and I follow him on Instagram. We've, you know, communicated, but I don't think he's just into doing all this, kind of stuff. So I've heard him give some interviews, but not a lot. Um,
Yeah. And that's probably a big part of it.
mhm. Yeah, so that's just why people don't know. And I think Amber O'Hearn was the first one who sort of popularized, so to speak, the carnivore way of eating. But she has a very scientific kind of approach. So I think it wasn't necessarily appealing to everyone.
Hmm.
So yeah, um, yeah. Back in the '90s, the veterans had a web board, and they were all talking about it then. Yeah. So, but I think
Mm.
we also have to remember that this is new to us. It's not new to the human species, but this way is new to us. And so we don't have veterans to look at, who have been doing this forever. I mean, the bear did it for a long time. And, that's one guy, though, one man. So how that his experience relates to other people, we don't know because we just don't have that scientific study there. And the veterans, they are doing things differently than those of us who've been at it, 2, 3, 4 years. So I don't know. We might be finding as our community grows and matures, we might be finding that we need to do things differently too.
Yeah.
I wish there were better information for us out there, but there really isn't. I mean, we just have to experiment and be sort of meticulous about keeping notes about what we're doing and then share the information, which is what we're trying to do here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with us. Like
Mhm.
you've been doing it how long? You should be coming up on
So
3 years, right?
yeah, December will be 3 years.
Okay. And I'm about at 2.5. Um, and then I think Deb is somewhere around one of those as well.
hmm
Um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the group as we've now been 5 years, 10 years going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, realistically speaking, I mean, we're all pretty new at this. Um,
Hmm.
and, I feel like my healing kind of peaked this year. I mean, it wasn't, I still see benefits that are emerging. So, there's the healing that happens very acutely, but then there's long term healing. So, who's to say, what I need and how much I need later on. So I guess this was a
Right.
little bit of a conversation for juniors or seniors maybe rather than freshmen. But I felt like it was an interesting conversation to have, and I think it's important for people to kind of hear what some of the thoughts are or the influences are.
Hmm.
Do you have any concluding thoughts, Arian? I hope that we didn't
Um,
confuse everybody, and we weren't particularly funny today either. So I'm sorry we weren't very entertaining. Arian
I
usually comes with
mean,
all the jokes. I don't know where he was.
I don't know. There wasn't many weren't as many opportunities for jokes this time, or they weren't coming to me. I don't know. That's you know what? I'll fall on that sword. It's my bad.
Mm.
Right here.
Yeah, I've made you laugh a couple times tonight.
You did, yeah. The loose
Hmm.
woman thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
But just I don't know. If you're new, stick to the script. Don't complicate things. And no, that's it. Stick to the script. Don't complicate things. Just chill
Hmm. Yeah.
and give it time. Yeah, everybody, junior, senior, super senior, freshman, give it time. Just
Yeah.
relax. Try to relax.
Yeah. Yeah. And um and it was refreshing when I finally decided to stop listening to the experts and to the studies and to, what was being said and just listen to my body, which,
Hmm.
might mean not eating as often as, I thought I needed to, or maybe more often than I thought I needed to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Keeping it simple.
Yeah. All right, guys. So I think that it's time to wrap this up. And so next week we are getting ready to start, like next Friday, a week from tomorrow, we are going to start the Thanksgiving to Christmas challenge. So I'm really excited for that. For all of
Oh
you who stuck,
yeah.
who stayed here until the end, I'm really glad that you were here, and I'm looking forward to getting on the challenge. Now, I don't want the challenge to be really draconian. We don't want to make it hard to get through the holiday season. We just want to stay on track. So I think what you should do this weekend and this week is think about what does a successful run through this holiday season look like, and have that clear in your mind so that when you start the challenge, you have an idea of what you're trying to do, and it doesn't have to be super hard, but you have an idea. And then I think that we will have in the Facebook group, we're going to have some kind of um, accountability and that sort of thing. So it's important for you to, be able to, just come in and check in and affirm, here's my plan for the day, and I did it, or something like that. That can be really helpful.
Yeah. That the social aspect of it always helps
Yeah,
and makes it fun.
yeah,
You want it to be
absolutely.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, guys. So I will see you next week. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, and so since next week is Thursday is Thanksgiving, so we're only going to do a live stream on Tuesday next week. It'll be our first Thursday that we're missing, but we're going to have a great holiday, so it will be fine.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I want to hear
Yeah.
about all the people that made this carnivore stuffing. Yeah, I saw Esther, I think, made it, or someone made it in the Facebook group. But I want to hear about all the other people who have made it. I want to see pictures. I want to know how delicious it was. Yeah,
Right. And how
yeah.
did you deal with all the grease? What did you do specifically that stopped all the grease from happening? Yeah, because I'll be interested to know like what the specific recipes were that got around that problem.
I don't know that that problem necessarily happens with every. I think I just made a mess of it when I tried to do it. That was just me.
No, no. I think just pork rinds as the breadcrumbs and all that stuff. I think that sounds like it would make a ton of grease. Um, but I think the people who are doing it with the egg yolk bread will have an easier time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to hear about all of it, how it all went. Um, so, I am starting a Facebook group for the challenge, and so I will make that. I will put it out there, and everyone can join it. But I'm not going to open it up until I think I don't know that Friday morning after Thanksgiving, or maybe that night. So then it will be open to everyone who's part of the challenge. But I will put a. I think I'll have to put a link in the description of this video with the link to sign up for the challenge, so I can email you all and make sure that everybody's in the loop. But if you signed up before, you'll be in the loop. All right.
That'll work.
Yeah. So Erica says no fat. It works pretty well. No fat in the pork rinds. It's been rendered out.
Oh, okay. So that's the pork rinds that don't have the curly bit of fat on them.
Oh no, you can't use those. Those are cracklings.
Hmm.
Cracklins. I said that wrong. Yeah.
He said it white. Cracklings.
Yeah.
Chitterlings.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot myself. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, all right, guys. So I'll see you next week. All right, everybody, have a great night.
Good night,
Bye.
guys. Bye.